how can being God-aware, self-aware, and others-aware help you find your fit, both in your local church and in your Christian walk? That's what we're talking about today here on the To Be the Church podcast. Hey, welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it looks like to be the church together. I'm Tyler, and this is Luke. Luke, this is your second time, I believe, on this podcast,
yeah,
right?
It's been a while.
Yeah, this is Luke, that's Joel, and that is Cody. And we are excited to be with you today. We're going to jump into something fun, but before we do that, Luke, we had some follow-up questions last time you were on the podcast. I don't even think I told you this,
Probably not.
but I figured let's just let you talk about it now.
Oh.
So do you remember what we talked about last time?
I don't.
Okay, I don't either, but whatever we talked about, Enneagram. Okay, thanks, Cody.
Enneagram.
Yeah, we talked about the Enneagram,
Yeah.
and one thing that we got multiple questions on is that you had mentioned something that Richard Rohr said about the Enneagram.
Yes,
I believe, and so we got a few follow-up questions that that were all about the same, and like pretty much we're like, hey, do you know Richard Rohr's theology? And based on like what he believes about certain things, do you think we should like be learning from him? And so what would you say to somebody who came up to you and like maybe on a Sunday was like, I listen to your podcast. What do you think about that?
I would not advise people to tap into Richard Rohr and his theology. I would not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have big disagreement. I would have a general disagreement right off the bat. It is going to be Catholic-based, but he kind of goes off the rails too and ends up in what I would term a universalist position theologically. Now, probably the bigger question is, can you listen to anything he says?
Right. Can you learn from him maybe based on the Enneagram or personality profiles?
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that?
think personality profile and Enneagram, we're not trying to base that biblically. I think it would be pretty hard to do. We could talk about people in general and what the Bible has to say about people, but it doesn't really get into temperament. The Bible doesn't. So this is all very human at that level. How much stock do we put in it? And that's where I would say, I think I said this the last time, that it's kind of fun to explore. It's nothing to hang your hat on. And that if it helps you in terms of understanding how you react in certain situations or with certain people or however, that can be helpful. It's an awareness piece, but by no means would I say that any temperament analysis locks you into that. We believe in a God and a gospel that sets people free and free from weaknesses, that you might have. So
yeah, that's cool. So that's not what we're talking about today, but
okay.
that was that just came to my mind. I was like, oh, the second time you've done the podcast. Didn't we have questions last time? There we go. Yeah. Okay, so what we do want to talk about today is a new class that you and I have been developing and is just starting here at our local church, Northwest Gospel Church. And I thought the conversation would be fun, not just for folks who might take the class here, but just for Christians in general. Remember, this is a podcast about what it looks like to be the church. And so one of the things we found here at Northwest Gospel Church is that sometimes it's hard for people to find where they fit. Maybe that's in like a serving capacity, in community. They show up on Sunday mornings and they want to get involved, but they just don't know where to start. And so we designed a class called Purpose in Place that's helping people find their fit, both here at NGC and then in their faith together. And so I came to you and said, hey, like, would you help me craft this? And I saw your eyes light up a little bit when I asked you that question. Why do you think that is?
It's interesting that we'll all at least mouth that we're interested in finding our purpose in place. And this really has to do, for me, with the theological truth that God has given everything to the church that it needs. Now, that means that every person that shows up at church has something to contribute. And of course, can obviously receive some things too. So it is part of being a follower of Christ is to be active in the body of Christ. For what reason? Well, there's a couple of reasons. It brings about the fullest nature of life. We actually step into what life is. Jesus had said, hey, if you would like to gain your life, you first have to lose it. If you want to be the greatest, you got to learn how to be the servant of all. Those things kind of, they flow out of our mouth really fast. But I would say this really speaks to the idea that there is a purpose, significance to my life, and that God gave the church for that to be exposed and taken advantage of for the whole of the body. So that's pretty exciting for me anyway, just to say to people, there is a place for you here.
Yeah, and I think maybe this exploration started before you were even on our staff, but when it was time to be like, okay, we've done a membership class, like what's next as far as like material for people to go through, and it was really clear that it was helping people find their fit. And so I spent like a few months reading most books on this stuff, and they all seem to follow a pretty specific formula, which was like theological truth of like why either spiritual gifts are a thing or why you should be a part of the body or whatever. Start there, then do a spiritual gifts test, and then be like, based on that spiritual gifts test, here are your areas to serve. And here's like, oh, you have the gift of teaching and you're patient. Go serve in youth ministry or whatever, oh, you're more of an artist or whatever, go do this.
Right.
But we took a different approach than simply like, theological backing, spiritual gifts test, and then go do that now. And so let's talk for a little bit about the framework we decided to employ and then why we did that.
Yeah, I think the idea here, at least you and I discussing it, was to try and give a picture that was holistic to a life. So many times we can get the church and my fit and place in the church, and that's a compartment in my life. And we never really take it out beyond the boundaries of that. This is what I do at church. I'm serving my sentence in children's ministry or wherever. And that's what we do. We say, well, that's my contribution. Versus what's this holistic picture of how God's created me and how I interact with the whole of my world, including my church. So I think that's the basic thing. Now, trying to get it into a picture that we can get our hands on or something tangible. Actually, you did a great job of saying, hey, can we put it in a Venn diagram?
Yeah. We decided that there's a few things that make up your sweet spot, like finding your fit.
And just for the record, those are overlapping circles,
right?
And the three that overlap, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, and so we broke up the class into 3 sections, and they're all 3 sections about awareness. And so that as we become aware in 3 areas, we can find that sweet spot where we can find our fit. And so the 3 areas are being God aware, being self-aware, and being others aware. And we kind of had like a guiding word with each of those that those who've maybe studied psychology or social, social stuff.
Hierarchy of needs.
Would be like, oh, I see what you did there. But, we talked about being God aware and finding a sense of security. Mm-hmm. We talked about being self-aware and finding a sense of belonging, and then becoming others aware and finding a sense of significance.
Right. Yeah. And they hopefully, with the class, you'll see that they kind of build on each other. So with security, the thought there is just simply that when God calls us to follow Christ, when we step towards that, we come to a realization, and again, this is our theological edge to this, we come to the realization that there is an eternal security and therefore a confidence in whatever we would attempt in the world when we're aware of God. Now that requires us to know, we divided it up and said there are indicatives and imperatives, and most of the time at church we talk about what we should do instead of what has been done. Mm-hmm. And we have been saved, and Christ has said to us, you are now mine, I've adopted you, you are sons and daughters of the King. That kind of security and being God aware then kind of propels us forward into, okay, so what did God give me? And what am I supposed to do with it? That's kind of the basic thought. So those 3 things hopefully stack on each other, getting us to a place of freedom in what we're gonna do here at church.
Yeah, and so it's 3 weeks, right? God aware, self-aware, others aware, and then we kind of went nuts with the Venn diagrams. And every week there's another Venn diagram.
Inside
so like,
that one,
yeah. So the one we just recently recorded was being others aware, and so we talked about understanding the mission, who and what are the others, or who are the others, and like what a meeting their needs look like, and then what does it look like to be a really good team player. And so there's like 3 things put together, and so each week has that element as well. But it might be interesting to talk a little bit about the delivery method for this class, because 15 years ago you'd set up a Sunday school time and say, all right, show up at this time every week, and we'll talk through this and stuff like that. And that's how we did a lot of our classes here at NGC in the past. However, we used to do NGC 101 in person, and in large groups of people. And NGC 101, by the way, is our membership class. But we were really handcuffed, and we were handcuffed by our teachers' schedules. And so Andrew specifically, our lead pastor, and then maybe one or two others who could lead that and facilitate and answer the questions that came with it, stuff like that. And so it was like, when's Andrew available? Or when is so-and-so available? And so there were times where we did that class over the course of 4 Wednesday nights in a row. There's times where we did that class like on a Saturday from like 8 to 5 and just like catered food all day and just like, all right, sit here and just, like
painful, but
yeah. And then, so we did it a bunch of different ways. And so, but when COVID hit, we actually sat down and recorded all the content via video, and then have classrooms where people can take in the content with a facilitator, stuff like that, have their questions answered as well. So it's not so handcuffed to anyone's specific schedule. And so, this class has 3 distinct parts, and we thought it was important to have a teaching part, but then also a group discussion part. So, how do we go with that?
I think we're in the age, very squarely in the age of YouTube, and I think I likened this the first class that we put on tape here for Purpose in Place, where back in the day, if you went to work on your car and you were mechanically inclined at all, you bought a manual for your car, its year and make, and you owned that manual for as long as you owned the car, and it gave you all the information you needed to take care of whatever needed to happen. No one uses those manuals anymore. And they don't use them for plumbing or how to build a composter or anything like that. All of us turn to YouTube, and we find a hopefully 2.5 minute video that shows us how to do that, and we go after it that way. So with that in mind, it's no different than even what you'd see the Bible Project doing with their video lessons and those things. But we took 3 components. So we took the first one and said, we'll put content on the video, and you can watch it at your leisure or in your time schedule. So that you don't have to come to a class. Then there will be some homework, assessment, as well as maybe some other stuff to look at and interact with that you will do on your own as well. And then the last piece is really critical, but you come back as a group. And instead of that being more content delivery, it really is a discussion. Now it's the group saying, here's what I found out about myself, or here's what I found out about my pursuit of God. I hear God best when, or I have put this discipline in play so that I can hear him. And you are going to learn from each other at that point. And so the critical piece is that they're actually discussing. So content delivery by video, homework that's kind of on your own, and then a group time in which you're sharing what you've learned.
Makes another sweet Venn diagram. Boom, boom,
I
boom.
know. We're stuck.
And so it's about 20 minutes of video, a quick assessment that takes a few minutes, and then about 30 minutes of group discussion a week over the course of 3 weeks. Again, this is our hope here is for the folks of our church to help them find their fit, find their purpose, find their place. And as this will come out, actually, the first class starts on Sunday. And so if you're listening to this on Friday and you're like, hey, that sounds good, go to nwgospel.com/findyourfit. And you can sign up right there, watch that 20-minute video, take the quick assessment, and then join us for our first group time on Sunday. Another cool part of this is that maybe you're not a part of NGC, but this information sounds, this is something you'd like to go through either with a few other people in your community or just on your own. Feel free. You can just set up a free account at nwgospel.com/findyourfit and have all the material there. The material's locked right now, so week 1 is out, and it'll be week 2 will be locked until week 2 starts, and then so it's not all up online yet, but it's there and available. So if you are one of those who wants to try that, we'll put a link in the show notes, but nwgospel.com/findyourfit. I think finding your fit also works too, in case people didn't get it.
It's not Purpose in Place, but finding your fit.
That's the link. Yeah, that's the link
Great.
to the actual material.
Awesome.
I think if you go to Purpose in Place, it's more information about the class. But I don't know. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see what happens. You and I will be doing the discussion on Sunday, and interested to see if anyone.
Right, we're taking a swing. You might bomb. You don't know. People could walk out super confused of I don't know where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, if you go to this church and you never hear about Purpose in Place, and after a few more weeks, you'll know.
That's right.
But Luke, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
if you have questions, we'd love to hear them. Podcast@toBeTheChurch.com is the best place to send those. If you have a critique on Richard Rohr or Luke's using of him in a podcast or anything like that, send it our way. Have a great week.